This is Mahesh Ravi, and I'm here with a very interesting tutorial. It's not exactly a tutorial, this is a very interesting way for you to study design. The first thing that you have to understand when you're a beginner in learning design is that design is not just tools. So, learning Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, XD, or Figma will not make you a designer. You have to understand where to use these tools and how to use them. You need to understand typography, you need to understand colors, you need to have a very strong foundation of layouts. You need to know different design styles that you can actually employ for a particular solution. So there are so many things that you have to conceptually learn and understand and think before you get started with the tool. One of the first exercises that you can try doing is to look at a lot of designs. The best way to learn design is by looking at what other designers are doing currently right now in the industry. So that is the reason mood boarding becomes really important when you're doing your designs. We are all coming from different backgrounds. Our exposures might not actually match up, right? The kind of aesthetic sense that we have is hugely dependent on the kind of exposure that we had so far. So it might not be good. We cannot guarantee that our color sense or our typography sense is by default, it's good. So we have to work for it. To do that, one of the best ways is to study designers and their styles and what are the things that they are using to produce a result. So you can do mood boarding to start with it. You can just check, let's say you go to Pinterest and you look at a couple of designs that actually works right now. So you will see a lot of design styles, you will see a lot of design trends, and whatever you like, save it, and then later study that design closely. Why this particular typography? Why this particular color? Why the spacing between these texts? Anything about all the decisions that the designers, that particular designer made in that design. You just try to find your own answers for it, because you cannot communicate always to the designer about the thought process behind that decision. But just take a design, look at it, and try to see that why did the designer go with that particular choice of typography, colors, and things like that. This will actually help you to build a good foundation. One other very interesting thing that you can do is to download a design from here, try to replicate it exactly to the pixel, and then modify it, right? So you keep modifying it bit by bit. Like you start with a design, you download a design, for example, you download this design, then you replicate it, you basically change the colors or maybe change the typeface, and eventually you will reach a point that you are not using any element or style from the original design, but you basically started with that as a foundation. This concept is called ship of Theseus. I don't know whether you have heard about it, but just look it up, right? It's called ship of Theseus. So study this. It's a thought experiment whether an object that has had all of its original components replaced, will it still remain the same object? So it's about a ship, right? So you have a ship, and every day you're going in and changing a part of the ship with a new part, right? And eventually none of the original parts will be there, but is it the same ship or is it a new ship? That's a question. So we are going to try the same experiment here in design and see how you can actually be good designers. So I'll show you an example that I've done here, right? So I've downloaded a design. This is basically the original design that I've downloaded from Pinterest. So I have this design with me right now, and I've replicated it. So this is not the original design. I have this design created by looking at a design that I got from Pinterest. Now what I've done is I've made two modifications from it, right? So I have tried changing step by step each of these components until I reached a point where none of the elements in the original design is used in my redesign. So both of these designs that you see on the left and on the right are my designs, which I started from this particular design, which is the original. So you can see how you can actually manipulate this and how you can use it to learn design better. So let's get started with an example. So we'll go to Pinterest and we'll download a design. So let's go to pinterest.co.uk and go to, I have saved this in my pin. So I'll go to the saved designs, and I have this design saved. It's a very simple design and it's easy to replicate, and that's the reason I've chosen this design here. So I'm going to download this design right now to my computer. I will use XD for this particular experiment. You don't have to use XD. You can use Figma, you can use Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever tool that you're comfortable with. Tool doesn't mean much to me right now at this point. So I'm going to go to XD and I'll create a new document. Let's start with a web document. So we have a web document here right now. and I will bring our design here. So I'm going to stretch it a little bit, the artboard, so that the original design can fit in there. I'm going to drag and drop our downloaded design into this document. Let's stretch it. It fits the... Okay, I think we can go and leave it there. We can go to the artboard and sort of trim it so that it fits there. Okay, so there is some boundary for this design. If you look at it closer, there is a browser window and all that stuff. We are not going to replicate that. We are going to replicate only this design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this and I'll delete this, right? And we can start duplicating this. So when I'm doing this, the first stage of it is a pixel perfect duplication of this. So we are not going to add anything from our end. We're going to look at this and we will try to mimic this original design as much as possible. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start with something. I'll just fast forward it. It's a very simple process. You just take a text, type whatever is written there. So we have this text right now. Let me scale it up and let's find a typeface which actually looks closer to that. You don't have to actually find the exact typeface. It needs to look somewhat similar. So we'll go find something which looks somewhat similar to this. You need to try and match the spacing. So I'm going to go in and I'll reduce the tracking to maybe -40 and see that works. Yeah, that's okay. We'll change the color to black. So we have that. We might need a little more scale here to match it. The kerning also we might have to reduce it. So, sorry, the leading also we have to reduce it. I'm going to just bring it closer like this. Let's scale it again. All right, this sort of looks similar to that. And we have a box which actually is in the background here. I'm going to just draw a box somewhat like this. Change the fill color to yellow so you can use the eyedropper tool to get the exact same yellow there. Turn off the border and bring it right here, move it down, and then sort of play around with it in a way that it looks sort of similar. So, right, the rotation and all that, you can just work on it. Needs a little more stretching. Right, so we have something like this. Sorry, you can again take this and scale it down a bit. Right, so we have this built in, and similarly you can actually use all the or try to recreate all the other layers. If you cannot find the images exactly similar to this, you can download an image which looks somewhat closer to it and then put it there. So you can go to maybe Unsplash and maybe look for Dune and let's say black and white, and you'll find images which will sort of work there like that. Maybe I'm going to take this, download. Okay, bring that image, drop it right there. So we have something very similar to that. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but as much as possible with all the text, all the effects and all that, try to replicate it exactly like what we have in this design. So fill, I might want this particular circle here. So just crops of it like this. So try to replicate it exactly like that. I'm going to just fast forward it so that you can see how the finished design looks like, right? So let's go, let's fast forward this, or let's cut to the end of this process, okay? Right, so we are here right now. I have recreated pretty much everything exactly in the way that it looks like on the original design. Maybe some scaling corrections I might have to do it here. Yeah, I think it looks correct. Right, so it's replicated. I haven't replicated the text exactly like it, but I've tried to match the the formatting and everything, and I've tried to find images which are similar to what I could actually do from here. So we have the design replicated. Now it basically starts, let's start with the modification process, right? One step at a time. So you don't have to rush with it, right? You don't have to create a modification right away on every element. Just think of it like, you're going to work only on typography first, right? So let's create a duplicate of this. Let's keep our replica just like that and try to work on the typefaces, just the typeface. So I'm going to look at this typeface and say that, maybe, what if I actually change this to a sentence case? I'm going to change the case of this, right? So this was all caps, uppercase, and we have changed it like this, right? This can also work, right? We are just changing it like that, and we are sort of analyzing it whether this will work. So this can also work. Now let's try a different typeface here, right? So what if this is something like a sans serif, right? Not a serif like this, but what if this is a sans serif? So you can definitely try that. And what if this is something which is much lighter? Again, definitely something that you can try. So I've tried it like this. Similarly, just try changing everything. So bring fashion, this is again an all caps thing, but what if we actually change it to something else? So I'm going to just duplicate this first text, scale it down, and then let's try and make it, write the text there, bring fashion, full circle, with one click. Right, so we made it like that. Now we can sort of remove this part, we don't need it, and we will bring it here. Right, scale it up a little bit. So yeah, we've changed the typography of two elements. Just that is what we did, right? We just changed it. Everything else remains the same. So now what we are going to do is there is this heading which is right there. So there is this dot and the heading, that is the style that they're using. So we are going to remove this. We don't need the dot because that is exactly something that we will be using from the original design. We are just going with another typeface, right? So what we do, we will just type it like that. What we do is already there. What we'll do is, let's change this to something that resembles the logo reformed, right? So we're going to go here, we will change it to the typeface. I think it looks very similar to Impact. We're going to change it there, but again, we don't need this much of kerning. So we're going to go to maybe 90. Yeah, I think that looks pretty decent, right? So we have this like that. So instead of the what we do that they have done, we have changed it to this. We are just changing the typography right now. So let's go here and let's try changing this to us. This is a sans serif. This is serif right now. Let's change it to a sans serif. Let's go here and we'll go to something like, let's say, Gill Sans, right? So this is a Gill Sans, a different typography that we're using. Just scale it down a bit and it looks pretty decent. So we have a Gill Sans here. We'll again go to the body text which is used in here, right? We will change this to a serif. Let's try and see how a serif will work here. Not great. So let's go and find something else. There is a feature, there is the Gill Sans again. So Gill Sans is something that we have used in the heading and that actually works, right? So we'll scale it up a bit. That actually looks good. We don't have to actually, maybe pair it with the serif. We'll try that itself. Okay, not that much, we don't need it. So, that's a pretty interesting typeface. We are looking for something else. Okay, let's go with Times New Roman. It's been a while that I've used Times New Roman. Let's see how that actually works. Okay, so we have Times New Roman here. We will change these typefaces as well. We will actually go and imitate the same typeface that we have used in here. We don't want to add too many typefaces in our design, so we'll just do this, right? The Impact typeface here. So we'll go here and we'll choose Impact. Okay, that works. And let's take that, change it everywhere. So Impact is what we want, right? Let's get rid of these lines because that is also from the original design, right? So let's get rid of these lines. We have that already. So now we'll delete these body texts and we will sort of copy this and we will keep it there. Okay. We have changed the typeface here. We will go here and we'll change it to the same typeface here, Gill Sans. So we'll delete this, we'll duplicate this and bring it down here and change it to our circular. Okay, cool. So it's the same thing, but what we'll do is instead of putting, this is again coming in lines. So this is a one line thing. And I don't think there is, here also there is a mismatch there, right? I don't like this particular, uh, style that they have used, because one title actually conveys the whole title in 3 lines, and here it is actually in 1 line. So there is a serious balancing issue there for me, right? Doesn't mean that the designer is wrong, but what I will try and do is I'll just break this into 2 lines just for my, yeah. So I think I like this better than this, right? So it sort of balances out like that. What we're going to do is there is another subheading here also. I'm going to just delete that. I will delete this and I will duplicate this, bring it down right here, and we'll call it How Does It Work? And that's the title there. So we have that in here. Okay, we are going to so we basically changed all our typefaces. So let's take this and let's change it to the first typeface that we have used here. Change it to Montserrat. Okay, and bring it down a bit. So what we have done here is that we have changed all the typefaces that is used. The design still remains the same, the layout still remains the same, but we have changed all the typefaces which are used in it, right? So that's our first step. Let's duplicate this once again. This is, we are going to go to the third step of it. We'll try to play around with the shapes. So I'm going to just select all the shapes which are used in here. I'm going to delete it. Not happy with any of the shapes which are used, so let's delete all the shapes. So we don't have any circles which are there, right? So now what we have done, that we can maybe play around a little bit with the layout of it as well. So this is pretty interesting, but I feel that this can actually do better if this is sort of coming in here, right? I'm just changing it like that. I'll bring the title here and I'm going to move it like this. So I want the titles to sort of just begin from here. Then the next title will start from here, right? So just adjusting that. Then the third one will be here. So it's sort of like 1, 2, 3. It goes in like that, right? So I'll bring this also here. Let's move it a little down. Okay, and we have this shape. We will work on this in a little bit. Let's bring the whole unit down. Let's bring our title right here. Okay, so we have that here, and let's play around with this as well. I mean, do we really need to lay it out like this, or can we actually display it in one line like this? So I'm going to take this, bring it closer, and maybe move it up a little. Right, this works, right? So we have actually modified the position of where these things are appearing as well right now. So slight, changes in the layout as what we did in the third version here. Let's duplicate it once again. Let's play around with how the images is working. So they have a strip format of images working here. Let's try something different here. So what we're going to do is let's try make it full screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this image into a full screen image like this. So we have the image right here. Let's bring it behind all the text that we have. It goes all the way down, and let's change the color of our text right now to white so that we can see it right here. We have the subheading also here, and we have this. So let's change the subheading text size color also to something like that. So we have made a major difference here, right? So this was the image, how it was shown here, and we have changed it into a full screen image. And we think that it actually works well there, right? It looks pretty modern, contemporary, right in there. So we have that right now, and we have this. We can also do the same thing with the image here. Instead of putting it there, we can actually make it full screen like this. So there is a full screen image which actually works there. And we can bring it a little bit of color there as well. So we have something like that in this. So it works like this, and finally we have this. But instead of putting it very plain like that, we can maybe try and bring the image also here a bit. So I'm going to make a duplicate of the image, crop it up a bit, right? So this is like the end of that image. So this is the beginning of the image and things like that. So let's bring a text layer also here. So we have something like this, right? So we came a long way from our original design. This something which is not nobody will say that we copied it from the original design. It's completely different. This is actually good for us, right? So we keep here. Now the only thing that we are retaining from the original design is this particular shape, right? So we don't have to do that. See, if we actually retain that element also, it's good, because it is actually talking about a circular movement, and the designer actually did a pretty good job with that shape. So we don't have to change it, but for the sake of this tutorial, right, I'm just going to change it, right? So I'm going to just select these images, these particular shapes here, and we'll just line it out like this. So instead of doing it as a circle or showing it as a circle, I'm just going to align it like this. I will show it as a line. So I'm just not retaining the original shape from there. So I have it like this. Now I'm going to bring it right here, and the image that they were using will come right here. So something like this. Take that here. Change the point to 50. Sorry, letting 50. 50 is too much. I think 40 is fine. Right. So we have this here, and the image which sort of explains their concept will come here. We don't have access to that image, so I'm not going to use it, but we have it like this. So see, now when we look at this design, we can now play around with it, and we can add more elements into it, right? So I'm going to duplicate it. If I want to sort of suggest that there is this circle, right? It's all about the circle in the theme here. So I can maybe bring in and introduce a circle here. So I'm just going to create an ellipse without a border. It's white right now. It's sort of okay. Maybe I can start to bring in a color here. Maybe the sky's color, right? So I'm going to bring in a circle, sort of like this. And that circle can sort of become a part of our design motif, right? So that circle sort of moves through our design. Something like this, right? So this is a there's an ongoing motif that we've added, and it also says or it stays very close to the design theme that or the conceptual theme that they had, right? So this is right now. Let's duplicate this and let's see how it actually compares right now. Let's move it slightly, yeah. And we'll bring in our original design where we basically started everything. Let's duplicate that as well. Bring it closer. And now we can compare this, right? These two designs. We basically started it from here, but we were able to create something very quickly because we were deconstructing this design. So this is a very important lesson, right? And a very, very, very useful technique that you can employ when you're starting to study design, right? A tool might take very little time or very little effort to learn, but design concepts are something that it takes its own sweet time to learn it, and you have to put in a lot of effort for that. So I hope this gives you a good starting point. I would recommend all design students to try this, and eventually you will get better at your art, right? Thank you, and I'll see you with another video soon.